Anthony, thank you so much for making the trip from Grand Rapids. It's really a pleasure to have you here. Obviously, you teach at Kuiper College. You told a story about bumping into teachers as a child.
Yes.
So did the students worry about bumping into you at the grocery store or at the bar?
Actually, no. It's the opposite. I'm actually worried about them seeing me out in the bar. So what that means, by the way, folks, is I tend to patronize the places with a high price point where college students typically won't go, because college students, listen, this is a fact. A college student is not going to buy a $17 Manhattan. But I will. They'll certainly do that. So
Awesome.
I try to keep the boundaries that way.
So one thing, obviously, I want to sort of acknowledge the room. So what's interesting here is, first of all, this is an audience that's familiar with CERF's work, the story that we've been documenting about the economy. And so these are people who embody almost everything that you just said. So these are people who, first of all, there's a creative dynamism here, right? There's people who are putting people at the center of what they do. These are people here that are trying to make sure that their own children have the opportunity to enjoy the life here that they did, right? To have those benefits. In fact, this is also a town, one of the nicknames for Ventura County is Ventucky, right? Okay. So when I was a teacher in Bel Air down in LA, there were families that had vacation. Oh yeah, we're going to Ventucky for the weekend, right? And that embodies two things. First of all, it's just a down-to-earth place where people aren't shy about rolling up their sleeves and doing the work to make the community better. And it's also a place where everybody knows everybody, right? When there's a challenge, you know who to call.
Yeah.
And so my sort of question for you is, how do you harness that to turn it into sort of the policy and political outcomes that make a difference, right, at the scale of a county of 800,000
No,
people?
that's a fantastic question. I think one of the things that we've seen in other parts of the country is it really does require a lot of political courage to operationalize those values and virtues in the spaces in which people inhabit, which is going to be controversial and is going to be sort of swimming upstream. It's going to be countercultural. And when I say trade-offs, I really meant, are you willing to sacrifice and be injured, not physically, but are you willing to suffer a little bit for the sake of other people having opportunity, right? And so it means that there has to be people willing to challenge the status quo and to make some hard choices about zoning laws, to make some really, really tough choices about the ways in which we encourage entrepreneurship, to really make some tough decisions about how difficult or easy is it to start a small business in the community, right? And to think about the fact that much of that requires the courage to challenge what has made the place so easy and clean and nice. I'll tell you a quick story. I did not want to put this in the talk. I just want to say this just for the record. But on the way here, my Uber driver was from Chicago, and this is what he said to me. I couldn't believe it. Uber driver. He's like, oh, I'm from Chicago. How long have you been here? About 9 years. He's like, I hate it. I was like, what? Tell me. I was like, oh, now you got me. Trey. Tell me more. This is what he says. He says, oh, the people here are nasty. Yeah, he did. He ranted. I was just taking notes. He said they're not nice. He said they only care about where they live and what they drive. He said people just brag about their kids all the time. And he's like, we're Midwesterners, we're nice people, right? I'm just sort of taking notes, right? So what was interesting about that interaction for me is that he felt as a newcomer, he was an outsider. And this is why I talked about hospitality and being willing to open it up to be invitational, to be inclusive, and to be deeply relational. He said that people here don't even say hi to you. They won't open the door for you. I'm like, you're kidding. He's like, no, they won't do it. He's probably exaggerating. Maybe he was having a bad day. I was like, guy, you need some coffee or something? I mean, you need a little something. But I think that just requires some courage to buck up against what's normal, what's been kind of working, and to be disruptive to it for the sake of other people. And by the way, last thing, the awesome part about all of this is that no one in this room may live long enough to see the results, right? And that has to be a principle, that the changes that you make for the sake of the next generation coming, you may never see it, but you can die proud of yourself that you made the trade-off necessary to make that happen, because it could be for your kids and your grandkids and your grandkids after them.
Well, and we should acknowledge that his Uber ride started on the other side of the LA County line, okay?
Yeah.
So what's interesting is all the things you said about working every day to make it easier to start a business. I'm involved in something called the Economic Vitality Strategic Plan Steering Committee, a group of leaders in the community, but also really talented staff in county government that are working on this every single day. And we're making progress in a lot of those areas. What a lot of this comes down to is there's sort of one polarizing issue in Ventura County, which is zoning, right? And it just so happens that we are the only county in the United States that does zoning by ballot box, right? So if you want to create new developable land, you actually have to get a majority of the electorate to approve that. And so, in the sense that we see sort of political polarization in all political avenues, this is the most polarizing issue here. And so a question I have is, again, this is an audience that I think embodies so much of what you're talking about. Where is, how do you work towards, what's the first step in a cultural shift, in a coalition building to actually make a difference at the ballot box?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I think sort of, when you asked that, this came to mind. On the one hand, there actually needs to be the relational piece with the voters. I think people actually need to be in rooms like this. They need to hear the data. They need to think about big picture, long term. We need some persuasion. We need opportunities to invite people in to thinking about a better future for the county. And that may mean, by the way, that the people in this room may need to roll up their sleeves and go door knocking and just talk to people. It may mean a lot of coffees and dinners. It may mean a lot of nights at bars, which I would vote for personally, just to sort of help people understand and see what's going on. Because what happens is that typically people vote in their own self-interests. This is an invitation to vote in the interests of the county, to put the people first, not me first. And that might mean that my views of something might change. It might mean that again, I'm willing to trade those off. So I think on the one hand, there's a relational piece. And then on the other hand, there's just basic policy. And I don't know all of the laws and policies here, but my guess is that there are some things that were done in the past that were bad ideas, and that maybe we need to go back and undo those and start over. And so there are people that can work on the policy side to make significant changes that are going to be disruptive and that are going to really probably make a lot of people mad. But again, thinking long term about what's best for the county has to be something that is the highest priority.
Yeah, and I do want to point out too, I think there's an opportunity intergenerationally to align incentives where voting in your own self-interest with an intergenerational lens actually may align your vote with what's best for the community and for those people trying to get a start.
Yeah. I mean, what would it look like, right, to dream again? What would it look like to be voting for the future, not the present?
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Awesome. So we are, unfortunately, because of the security situation, we started a little late. We don't have as much time as I'd hoped, but I believe Tim is out there with a microphone, and if we have one really, really excellent question that you would like to direct to Mr. Bradley, Tim is going to walk around with a microphone. So raise your hand if you want to ask a question.
But now there's too much pressure.
Tim, do you see a hand?
I don't see a hand.
Okay, all right.
Hi, we know each other. I'm Maureen with the Farm Bureau.
So one thing I would love to hear from your perspective on is we have some really awesome initiatives in Ventura County related to farm worker housing. And I'm also someone whose phone number is public. So I get calls from community members, neighbors of these projects, who really have a strong perspective that people who look like them and think like them and act like them should be their neighbors, and a huge objection to people who don't look like them, don't act like them.
Yeah.
We have people in public comments talking about the smell of food cooking from other cultures. And as a person who does advocacy work, I'd love to hear from your perspective as an expert on this.
Yeah.
How do we create a vision that also includes change, that also includes a recast of what Ventura County's culture actually represents?
That's a fantastic question. So again, that's why I open with human flourishing and thinking about and caring about people. And to reimagine that a truly inclusive community means that you're bringing in people that haven't been here before, but that's actually an opportunity for some real diversity. It's opportunity for new relationships, for new smells, for new ways of connection, I would say new ways of fun, and to really spin it as a positive rather than a negative. To spin it as, you know what, the county can change, it's gonna have some new people in it, this is really, really great. In fact, you could say that the more diverse we are, the more great we are. We sort of a super county in that sense. But it really does begin with people being willing to suspend their prejudices and their assumptions for the purpose of really investing in the flourishing of the other. That has to be a starting point, that you want other people to thrive. And I'll just say this as a just sort of bottom line. The best way to change a culture's values and to align them with the existing ones is social and economic mobility. That is, if you really want people to change to be like you want them to be, well, put them on a pathway where they improve their lives. Because people, when they improve their lives, they all want the same things. We all want cars and grills and big houses. I mean, those sorts of things are not necessarily race or specific, but when you invest in people and show that you care for them and that you want them to do well, and you want them to align their values with the values of the community when it's done from a place of invitation, hospitality, and not from a place of being an adversary or the other. Those sorts of things tend to work themselves out. I lived in New York City for 14 years. If you want to come see what this looks like, just come to New York, kind of my neighborhood on 182nd Street in Wadsworth, and you'll see what I'm talking about. I mean, it really is a beautiful thing when people are open to loving people because they're people.
All right, and so Dr. Bradley, we welcome you back a year from now. We'll take a picture with you by the Welcome to Ventura County sign that we're going to erect. Please join me in thanking Dr. Anthony Bradley. Dr. Bradley, thanks so much. Of course.